Welcome to the Preacher's Porch. Glad to have you visiting with me tonight. That was a little cheap guitar interlude. uh, I have a I have a finer piece that I play, but that was that was the cheap one. It's quick, set it up. The other one I kind of have to set up a little bit different, just to make sure I'm taking care of it. So get a stand or something. But who knows? Maybe we'll do some more of those little things. That's a little composition of mine. I'm trying to think of the name of it, off of my CD. It's not Dancing Shallows. Oh, Gently on the Currents, I believe is that one. And it's kind of a thing that it's kind of an idea that I borrowed from the great Chet Atkins. Uh, Not per se the melody or anything, but an idea, with the moving bass line and so on. And it's a nice piece. So, anyways, wow, getting a lot of glare on my glasses, facing this way. Let's change that. Now tonight, this might not be quite as long as some others, but all right, let's see here. Oh yeah, less glare on my glasses and a view out the back. Okay, um, might not be as long, probably, but just something that really helped me. Really, I mean, oh, by the way, usually you'll see me with a cup of coffee, but today Michigan actually crossed into about 74 degrees or so, and I have a lemonade. I'm still washing down. For anybody that'll watch, like maybe watch this from the UK, I don't know if you have something reciprocal to this. We did hamburger gravy on rice. It's a very nice kind of Midwestern thing. And I always hit it with some steak seasoning to give it some spunk. The queen, she doesn't like that much spice, but boy, oh boy, I hit mine, and it's kind of wonderful actually. She makes it good too, because uh, she puts like 2 full pounds of hamburger in her gravy, and it's wonderful. Anyways, so in one of my Snoopy collector glasses here, um, happiness is something. I guess happiness is glass of lemonade and Snoopy. Of course, I do a lot of stuff with Snoopy. Let me see, get this right here. My mouse pad, my mouse. How about that? Anyways, I think Charles Schultz was a genius, the great Sparky comic strip creator. So, on to some word. James 1. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations. Um, that's kind of a weird thing, and people can preach it all over the place. Um, People use it to preach against health and prosperity. People use it to preach for health and prosperity. People use it to preach um, about temptation to sin and so on. And uh, here at this house, um, let's just say there's been some pretty heavy spiritual warfare on a couple of fronts. Um, and wow, praying my face off. And so I was listening to another preacher, and his friends have nicknamed him the Greek geek, not because he's Greek, but because he's a super student of uh, the Greek. And he was preaching something that really, really helped me. And I just want to touch it for a minute to maybe help us, because there's other things in the New Testament that talk about temptation, and even in the book of James, that are sin specific. And boy, you don't get any talk about joying in, around, about, or calculating that conversation about temptation. But when this other preacher got into the Greek, he showed something that just really helped me in this warfare point, because here James says when you fall into diverse temptation, that would be a spectrum of temptation. So now we got to look at the word temptation. Is this temptation to sin, or is this the temptation of struggle? The temptations of to quit, to find flesh solutions to spiritual warfare situations. And here's what he showed that helped me clarify this. When Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan, and I'm gonna try something. I don't know how it will work because I'm on the line, so I don't think it shows to you. But I've got this. Okay, that wipes me out. So what I don't know is when I do this, if it cuts the screen, you'll have to tell me, or I'll go back and I'll review this and find out, because it's obviously not cutting my feed. So I want to go up here and I want to take a look. All right, I can move. I don't think it's cutting my feed. So I'm going to put this up where I can see it. I've got the James on one device, and I've got the Luke on the other. Luke 10:30. Jesus arguing with a religious lawyer, a lawyer of religious law. And so Jesus told him a story. Some people call it a parable, but I think it was actually true. I think maybe this guy even knew this story. Jesus tells it as if maybe he had met one or the other of the key players. But he said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. All right, now, that's all I want from that. Because James over here, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations. Now, one of the things this preacher dealt with was he didn't say necessarily to call the temptation, the challenge, joy, but rather add up the particulars that create an opportunity for victory. It was kind of that thing, maybe not entirely. because he's talking about many, many, many challenges here. Calls them temptations. Well, it's interesting that in another place it says God cannot tempt men. God does not tempt men with evil, and that evil is not the same word as sin. So we have this different idea now, in which there's a temptation that's not a sin temptation, but rather a warfare temptation. And Jesus used the same word, fell among thieves, that his brother James, in writing this epistle, is saying when you fall. It was the same Greek word. Here's how it helped me. That guy going to on his way down to Jericho or wherever it was, he didn't do anything to, quote unquote, deserve getting hit. He was minding his own business. Out for a walk, maybe to go do some commerce. I don't know. But we have nothing that says he was sinning. He fell among thieves, completely unexpected, quite outnumbered, and without being a jiu-jitsu master or a UFC fighter or a fully armed Roman soldier of some kind. In that day, I'm amalgamating two different eras here, from our era, without being a concealed carry guy walking along, some road here in America where it's still legal, and got his weapon and can defend himself with something that equalized the 3-to-1 thing. This poor guy got the living whooped out of him. And how difficult, How redneck of my neighbor. Nice set of glass packs. I actually like living in my neighborhood. There's a lot of the music of freedom around here. I got a neighbor with a semi, and for a while he was running. He buys old semis and fixes them up and customizes them. For a while he was running 8-inch straight pipes on that thing. And you talk about loud, coming off of a big Cat or Detroit motor, and it was loud. But this guy, he fell among thieves. They beat the tar out of him and stole his money, stole his clothes. Basically, they left him for dead. That's really what happened. He fell among them. And so this James scripture, when you fall into divers temptations, sometimes we fall into stuff that we couldn't see. Little challenges might not seem like spiritual warfare, but you got to watch out, because Paul said we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against principalities and powers. So while I'm not a demon behind every tree kind of guy, I'm also not so naive as to say the enemy cannot set up to say that the enemy can't set up circumstances on us. He's always looking for whom he may devour. So he's looking for little inroads that you might not know, and they don't have to be sin-based. They don't have to be sin-based. They don't have to be because you're living outside the will of God. He might send a salesman to sell you bad tires, a cheap brand. I know about this little thing because we're in the middle of one of these challenges. Um, he does something random to hit your car, beat on your car, and then you go to shop for another car, and he's got a slick lip salesman waiting to sell you a lemon. You do your due diligence, you do your best. They found some way to make the motor sound tight and make it seem right mechanically and all of that, and then a month later, here you are holding the next level of warfare or conflict or affliction, if you will, stress. We fall into things. Sometimes just random things happen to us. We've been praying for loads for that truck so that truck will move. And the outfit that I've contracted with for the spring can't work in the rain. Well, Michigan's being flooded right now. I mean, flooded. It's crazy. I drove north. US 10 cuts the lower peninsula just about in half by miles, east to west. And north of US 10 was scary. What's going on? I had some road construction detours, and I knew a shortcut down a dirt road that has a bridge over one of the major rivers. And I got up on that road, and I had 3 places near the river where the water, the rivers come way over its banks, and it's out in the swamps. And there was a low area in the road, and it was coming over the road 3 places. I had to wade water with the Cadillac. Well, there's a lot of temptation to do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, take the wrong response, be angry with God, be angry with one another, and so on, over something that none of us knew was going to turn into this. We didn't know the rains were going to whack the rivers right up over their banks. Now, we were concerned about the northern tier of counties because they had a huge snowfall very, very late in the snow season. So they were, oh my goodness, it dropped 30 inches up there. It was heavy. And so we were very concerned about them. If we got a rain that was a fast melt, we knew about that. But this is just a few miles from, this 20 miles or so from my house. And wow, rivers are high, creeks are high, swamps are full and overrunning, and everything's headed down to the bay. What does that mean? Well, it probably means the lake levels in Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are going to go up. I'm certain that the lake levels in Lake Superior will go up because Lake Superior the upper peninsula of Michigan got so much snow. Anyways, this stuff it's random. We fell among it. It fell on us. We didn't see it coming. We didn't invite it coming. You couldn't know outside of about a 72-hour window that the storms were going to turn into this. Well, I'll tell you, this helped me. Because I have been praying and hunting high and low, Lord, all this warfare. And what this man shows us is that sometimes falling into something isn't our fault at all. Now, if you fall into temptation to sin, that might be random, but then it's your own lust that causes problems. But when we have this kind of diverse temptations, we need to turn to the one who spoke faith to us, spoke to us to endure. Um, we need to go to the scriptures about overcoming and miracles against stuff. We also need to go to the spiritual warfare side. Sometimes we have to come back and realize, wait a minute, I don't wrestle against just flesh and blood. And I said against just, whereas Paul said we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. He said if we're wrestling with it, we're wrestling against principalities and powers. So that's my challenge to us tonight: is don't just internalize everything as you're a bad person, you're not in the right place, you're not doing the right thing. There may be warfare that the enemy, that you fall into, and the enemy sets his minions on you for whatever he can control as the prince and power of the air that Jesus dethroned in one sense, certainly at the cross, but in another sense has not yet put him in hell away from us. So he is still a manipulating factor. Um, you know, maybe there is some influence on the elements, and we know in the garden he came on a snake. I think he came on a couple of deer. Yep. I think there was a couple of deer that let the devil use them. Next year, if I deer hunt, I'm probably going to be hunting deer based on, does that deer look like he'd let a demon make him smash somebody's car? Because I'll put his lights out and eat him. Well, anyways, my challenge to you: don't just get down. Don't just get down. Let the Lord comfort you with the promises of overcoming, and then be comforted, and then overcome. Be comforted and overcome. All right. I love you. I'm glad that you joined me. I'm glad to share a word with you. And well, I just saw something I should have read. Verse 5 of James 1. If any of you lack wisdom, one of the things that you need to do in the middle of a fell into ugly situation is to go to the Holy Spirit and pray. Go to the Father and pray. And get wisdom about your circumstance. Get wisdom about your situation. Because wisdom's probably not going to be condemning. Probably the Lord's going to say, wow, you know, you've landed in a mess. Now let me show you how to get out, how to win, how to profit by it. Because he can show us how to profit by it. He can show us how to win. All right, that's that. And I'm gonna take you out with just a little more of Gently on the Currents. something like that.